should they say thank you. It's not easy to do so. And I believe all moms should be recognized for your love and your patience. Thank you. And in talking about moms, who are some of the famous mother figures or mothers in the Bible? Of course, we know the mother of Jesus, Mary, who bore a son out of wedlock, endured perhaps some of the most critical comments from the society, and did this for the good of the world. We know the mother of Moses, who, because she loved Moses, was willing to give him up in order to give him life. Naomi, mother-in-law of Ruth, a mother figure, who willingly set his daughter-in-law free of their responsibility and covenants so that they could have a better life. But have any of you heard of the mother of Rufus? If you have, and besides Paul, if you have, you're really a person to pay great detail, to pay attention to great detail, because Rufus is a name that was in the New Testament, mentioned in the New Testament twice. One time in Romans 16:13, Paul says to the church in Rome, greet Rufus, chosen of the Lord, and greet his mother, a mother to me also, Paul said in Romans chapter 16, verse 13. If you have noticed this verse before, I am very impressed, because I must say that whenever I read Romans 16, if you don't know about Romans 16, this little chapter detail is probably not on the top of the list to pay attention to by anybody. Because Romans 16 is not exactly a chapter that you would spend any time with. You would actually skim over it. Lots of names, 26 to be exact. Unless you're a historian, you would not pay attention to any of those names. Most of the names are not pronounceable. So I usually just kind of skim over this part of Romans. But if you look at carefully in this chapter, Romans 16, and I did this week because it is part of this lectionary, I have discovered that there is much more to it than I first imagined. For example, it is interesting that there are 26 people listed, but out of the 26 people that Paul singled out for his personal greeting, 6 were women. Now, you might not think that that's important or that's pertinent, but I think it strikes me as being very interesting because since Paul has frequently gotten a bum rap for being a male chauvinist, I think it also shows us a tremendous influence that women had in the early church. In the midst of the male-oriented first century Palestine, it is very telling to us that Paul could not describe the church at that time without mentioning 6 women and the significance that they had of these women. Particularly in Romans 16:13 is interesting because it is one of the verses that scholars have struggled with throughout the years, throughout history, because of how the grammar. Paul writes, give my greeting to Rufus, chosen in the Lord, and his mother, and mine. Now, on the surface, and I just suggested what I think it means, this statement could be taken 2 ways. It could mean that Paul had a distinct women in mind, the mother of Rufus and his own personal mother. Or he could be saying, I salute you, Rufus, and his mother, who is like a mother to me. If that is what he meant, and most people, including I do, agree that is indeed what Paul meant, then it raises a more interesting question, and we can speculate. When and where did Paul meet Rufus's mother? Did she nurse him through some serious injury, or did she receive him into her home for an extended stay during his missionary journeys? How did this woman and Paul form such a close bond that Testament. Romans is one. And actually, if you're paying attention, we may know this Rufus. In fact, we may have mentioned it about a month ago. If you turn to Mark chapter 15, verses 16 to 24, I'll read it for you. It says, the soldiers led Jesus to the courtyard of the palace. They called together the whole cohort. They began saluting him mockingly. Hail, King of the Jews, and strike Jesus' head with a reed. After mocking him, they stripped him of the purple cloak and put him his own clothes on. Then they led him out to do what? To crucify Jesus. Then they compelled a passerby who was coming in from the country to carry his cross. It was Simon of Cyrene, the father of Alexander and Rufus. Simon of Cyrene is the person privileged, or at that time not so privileged, to carry the cross of Christ. And his sons were Alexander and Rufus. So we begin to speculate, was this the same Rufus to whom Paul was speaking of in Romans? If that's true, his mother would be who? Simon of Cyrene's wife. The person who carried the cross of Christ's wife. That would mean the impact, maybe, of carrying Christ's cross really hit Simon of Cyrene. That his whole family now is aiding the spread of the gospel and the ministry of Paul. I would like to think that. I would like to think that. So, however, nobody knows for sure who this remarkable woman is, who served as a mother figure for great Paul, but it really makes it interesting. Even though Rufus' mother was not Paul's birth mother, she made such an impact on his life that he mentioned her when he thought of what a mother should be like my own mom. What was it that Rufus' mother did for Paul? We can only speculate. But I'm sure it has to do with love. It is always interesting because Mother's Day often falls on the day when the lectionary takes us to today's passage, John 15, when Jesus says, my command is this, love one another as I have loved you. Isn't it that what moms would do and say to all of us, especially to her children? Love. I remember when my brother and I were both still young. As all brothers do when they're young, we fight. And we fought hard. I remember this because we were in Minnesota. And we shared a room when we were there. Growing up, sharing a room with two boys. You're bound to get in trouble once in a while. When you get the two boys in the same room, something bound to happen. And it did. We started fighting, of course, but then my mom, stepped in. And what Jesus said in John 15, exactly what she said as well. My mom said, why can't both of you love each other as much as I love you? You are brothers, both are my flesh and blood. That kind of stopped for a little bit, and of course we went back fighting after two days, as all boys do. But at that moment, it really hit on something. As Jesus said, as I have loved you, love one another as brother and sister. My mom at that time says, love each other as brothers as I love both of you. Mothers are known first for their love, of course, but for their tenacious love. No matter what, they have to deliver this love to their children. The term mama bear comes to mind for me. I had a friend who used this term quite a bit when she said she has to mention her children get in trouble or somebody is messing with her children. Mama bear instinct comes. That's the tenacious love that I'm talking about here. Most of you may know Hank Aaron. And if you don't know who Hank Aaron is, okay, read up, Google him. If you really don't know who Hank Aaron is, you should. But he's a baseball player, African American. And he played in the 50s until the early 70s. And we know in the 60s what happened. We had the Civil Rights Movement, right? And on April 8th, played against the Dodgers. He had tied Babe Ruth's home run record, and he was about to break it. And since he was African American, who was about to break Babe Ruth's record, a white player, a lot of people in this country at that time didn't like it. Simply didn't like it. That year, Aaron got more than 930,000 letters. Most of them were fan letters, but about 100,000 of them were hate letters. Half of them were death threats. When Aaron hit the home run, of course, the crowd went wild. But as we see this on TV once in a while, as Aaron rounded second base, a couple of teenagers, both of them white, jumped over the retaining wall and ran out of the field, chasing Aaron. For a moment, no one knew what they wanted, but then it became clear they just wanted to celebrate with Hank. But as Hank Aaron crossed the home plate, his teammates swamped the field, surrounding him, cheering him on. But in the middle of all those players who are at least 6 feet was this short, about 5 foot 2 inches, 68-year-old black woman who was latching on to Hank Aaron and would not let go. Hank Aaron turned and said to her, "Mom, what are you doing here?" Just like all mothers would do, embarrassing us at the most opportune time. No, I'm kidding about that one. "Mom, what are you doing here?" Hank Aaron said. Because the mom had saw these 2 white people chasing after her. So she said, "Baby," and she had known about all these death threats. She said, "Baby, if they're gonna get you, they're gonna have to get me first." That was the reason why she ran onto the field. She ran onto the field because of her tenacious love of wanting to protect her son from any danger, no matter how small she is, no matter how diminutive she is. She hugged him and made sure anybody gonna get to Hank Aaron had to go through her first. Isn't that the truth about all moms? Isn't that the love that only a mother can have for her child? If they're gonna get my baby, they're gonna have to get me first. Just the fact that mothers have to go through labor, that alone shows their tenacity. My mom was in labor with me for 24 hours before I was born. And for those of you who have never or witnessed what that's like, tenacity is needed. Not only mothers love, tenacity is definitely needed. Because I remember going through, not going through labor myself, going in the room when Punchman was going through labor, the pain that she went through. I think it is a blessing for those of us at this day and age as fathers to experience that in the same room, to see that in the same room. That is important because we realize how much our moms do love us. Not only are mothers' love tenacious, their love is also impactful in our lives. Their love makes an impression for the rest of our lives. Before coming to the United States, my family came to the United States. Most of you knew I came to the United States when I was 11. My dad came first, in fact. The reason for his coming to the United States was because he wanted to do higher learning. It wasn't to move, or else we would have moved together. But it was because he wanted to do higher learning. He came to the United States to study astronomy. Yes, astronomy, that astronomy. It was out of pure interest, so he didn't want to move with his whole family. What that meant was, for 3 years prior to our move to the United States, was that my mom was a single mother in Taiwan of 2 boys. One, 8, another 5. While teaching full-time. I know for a fact now that isn't easy. That wasn't easy. She made an impact on my life because I am now very empathetic to what my wife is doing in California. Full-time work and full-time mother. And I appreciate everything that she's doing in support of my ministry and for her ministry as well. And I believe it was Friday night. relationship, these little things that you do for your wife or your mom is very important. So since now we have a long-distance relationship that my wife and I have, around 9:30 my time and 6:30 her time, just before she gets up, I send her a simple text to my wife, and every single morning, it is now in memory in my phone. And I would say, "Good morning, beautiful, and I love you." Every single morning. It is not much. In fact, you just have to keep tapping it. The word just keeps coming out because I've said it so many times, right? You know that phone does that for you, right? Just keep tapping it. It's not much. But I keep doing that because I don't want her to forget that I appreciate what she's doing. And I can't wait until they come next year at around this time. Small things like that we can learn from our moms and what they went through, so that later on in our lives, we have an impact in our lives of how to treat other people. These are the little loves that our moms pass on to us. What is your most vivid memory of your mom's love? Or a mother figure? Some of us are fortunate to have our moms. Some of us are not. Some of us have loving moms who growing up, and some of us did not. But I am very certain in one time in our lives, there is one mother figure in our life that made an impact through her love. Is it a single event? Or is it a lifetime of experience, or still continues? Some of us may not have good, I like for you to go through that memory. I like for you to go to that memory. Not about a single event, but a lifetime of experiences when you have felt that mother's love. And then now listen to the passage that we read this morning with a little different, if you will, different thought, if you will, as I read this. As your mom, or mother figure, as your mom have loved you, so God has loved you. Abide in their love. If you keep God's commandment, you will abide in their love. This is God's commandment, that you love one another as your moms have loved you. No one has greater love than this, to sacrifice one's life for another. I am giving you these commandments so that you may love one another as your moms have loved you. Happy Mother's Day. I'd like for those of you who are speaking English only, I posted a Facebook question on Facebook. It is that if you want to share what is your fondest memory of your mom or your mother figure after that, that would be great. I think that would just have a little bit of discussion on it while I'm preaching Taiwanese in a little bit.
这是上帝话。
兄弟姊妹平安，母亲节快乐！伫罗马书16章遐，保罗对向迄个罗马教会请安吼，特别遐有对即个6位负责人请安。咱知这是足重要一个代志，因为以前的负责人甲的地位，甲即摆的地位实在无共款，所以有6位负责人伫遐互保罗的请安是无简单的代志。但是咱若咧读即个罗马书的时阵，即段经载的时阵，咱时常会跳过去16章遐，因为敢若是遐敢若是历史遮的名，遐的人的名尔。但是罗马书16章13节遐，保罗对一个特别的人请安，伊讲请安伫主得着拣选的罗母，甲伊的老母，即个人也是我的老母。即个罗母是谁呢？是啥呢？即个罗母是咱来记哩，就是可能就是迄个伫马可福音15章讲到迄个罗母，就是迄个哥林纳人西门，哥林纳人西门替耶稣举起迄个十字架迄个西门，所以有可能保罗请安即个老母就是即个西门的太太，罗母的老母。咱会使讲，这有可能透过迄个经验，哥林纳人的即个西门的专家，拢有受到感动，接受耶稣基督。因为咱有看到保罗对伊即个人，即个负责人真正有尊敬，对伊真正有足好的好感。因为保罗称呼伊为伊伫为伊的老母。咱知，咱嘛有咱伫咱的生活中嘛有看到，嘛有接触到，就是讲咱老母的疼，可能是即世界上近上帝的疼，上近即个阿爸的即个疼。老母的疼，第一，为一个方面来讲是做关重的，顽强。什么意思？尤其即个老母的即个疼吼，对伊的囝仔，无管是啥物原因，一个老母一定用伊所有的气力，甚至有时阵即个气力比伊家己平常有的气力，平常有的精神来保护、来照顾伊囝仔。上迄例子就是婴要出生的时阵，现代人查甫的较有福气，吼，因为现代即个查甫的有机会去看到即个婴仔咧出世的时阵，伫遐老母要生囝是足需要足大的气力，把一个囝生出来。我看到的时阵，真正是都体贴我的太太，体贴我家己的老母。所以咱来讲生日快乐的时阵，其实咱敲一个电话互咱老母就差不多。我有一摆甲一个啥物仔咧讲话，我讲today is my birthday， 今日是我的生日。My mom's gonna give me something， 我老母要给我一个物件，吼，我一个礼物。我就甲伊讲，你想看觅咧？迄天你生日迄天是啥上艰苦？你听看，5 years old，5岁咱都毋知啦。啥？就是你的老母。我老母伫病院食死小死以后才生出我，不是伫病院迄是 labor 就是死小时才生出我。所以这气力要生出一个囝，这个气力是很超常的，这特别的这种气力。咱查甫人有看过，毋是讲经验的，看过这个经验的时阵，就较体贴咱的太太，体贴咱的。第二，咱老爸疼是对伊的囝仔有一生有足大影响的一种的疼。兄弟姊妹拢知，我家庭为台湾来到美国是去明尼苏达，但是可能毋知，阮爸爸是1983年来到遮，阮弟弟我甲阮妈妈是1986年来到美国的，所以慢3年来。 这3年的时间，阮妈妈除了爱照顾我，甲阮弟弟以外，也注意爱伫即个学校教册、做学习，所以是无简单的代志，就艰苦的代志。所以即马阮太太伫家就嘛是共款，也是照顾查某囝，嘛想爱full time即个工作。虽然我足期待明年会来到遮，但是我就是因为以前阮妈妈有一种的经验，我有体贴过即种经验。即马我知这就是无简单的一件，对我生活生命是足大的影响。即马嘛较体贴。所以咱老母的疼是一个，毋是平常的疼。是上紧上地的疼，有即个人虽然无老母，但是有一种的老母，亲像老母的安尼甲因照顾，嘛是共款。Mother figure， 足侪人拢是即种，毋敢若咱家己的老母。啊，即种的疼，毋敢是足毋是平常，啊，佫一个是对咱的生活足大的即种的影响的即种的疼，一世人拢会去想。今日咱读的经节是为即个约翰福音15章，耶稣伫遐讲：我有疼你，就像我的爸会疼我。其实耶稣嘛是